Welcome to the Real9 Podcast. I'm Dungeon Dan.
And I'm Creepy Uncle Kevin, and today we're going to be reviewing the film Wild Beast that came out in 1984. Dan, if you'd like to give us a brief plot synopsis.
The animals in the Frankfurt Zoo are going crazy from PCP in the water supply.
That's right. PCP has accidentally gotten to the water supply, those damn junkies, and now all the animals are going crazy and attacking.
And they're attacking.
This is a B movie, kind of a B movie, Italian production with poor dubbing, and it's a classic. I give it probably 3 out of 5 stars, even though I've watched this movie so many times, and I just love it for some reason. There is some real animal violence in the film, though, by the way, so before you go and rent it, you got to kind of ask yourself, if you're that person or not.
That's a polite way to put it.
You like animal violence or not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I get it.
Right.
And I'm glad that you brought it up because I would have forgot to say it.
Okay.
If you are absolutely do not ever want to see anything like that, yeah, you don't want to watch this movie. It's not that it's abundant, but it's there. As far as me, I would rate this a 3.5. It's a foreign film, obviously. It's got its issues, but it is well worth watching, in my opinion. I've seen it dozens of times over the years since it came out. So 3.5 for me.
All right. Excellent. A little bit about the production of this film. This is the first fictional movie by a director by the name of Franco E. Prospetti, who is responsible for co-making the movies Mondo Cani, Part 2, and then he also made the movie Africa Audio, Blood and Guts, a documentary about Africa that's obviously very bloody. And then he also made a movie about slave trading called Goodbye, Uncle Tom. So this was actually his final film, which was a work of fiction. And the shooting, it was very difficult, by the way. So they tried to film it at a few locations in South Africa. In the first location, they actually were attacked by terrorists in the hotel that they were staying in. So they had to relocate somewhere else in South Africa where they were able to shoot the cow sequence and the elephant sequence. But then word got around that the crew that made Africa Audio, Blood and Guts was in town. And they pretty much were able to kick them out because nobody wanted to work with them because they thought they were, well, what they are, exploitation filmmakers.
Yeah.
So they had to go back to Italy to actually film the movie. And this really caused what was supposed to be a low-budget film to, the budget ballooned quite a bit. The actors that were in the movie, actually the lead actor tells quite a funny story on the bonus features of the Blu-ray. What was his name? His name was Tony DiLeo. And then he had to change his name for the film to John Aldrich. But this guy, he tells a story about that he was in this rock band and that he was performing close to a circus. And he would have his shirt off and perform these jams. And somebody thought he was a handsome-looking dude and said, hey, you'd make a good animal trainer in our circus right across. And so he said, sure, I'll do it. And then they put him in the circus. And then some filmmaker saw him in the circus and thought, wow, he can work with animals and he's good looking. I'm going to put him in my movie. And he was in this sort of underwater comedy I've never heard of. But then Franco Prospetti was looking for an actor that had experience with animals. And somebody said, I have this guy. He's from the circus. And he ends up hiring him. Meanwhile, this guy has no experience with legitimately working with animals. He's just being hired because he looks good with his shirt off, apparently. That's what people are saying.
That brings up the whole thing of at what point does the qualifications to be an animal trainer require you to be good looking without your shirt?
Right. Yeah, apparently in the 80s.
It sounds like a pickup line to me.
Yeah. So yeah, this poor guy gets hired by Franco Prospetti, and Franco's just telling him, yeah, man, we got a polar bear, we have these 2 bears, we got elephants, we got hyenas and cheetahs, and the guy's like, well, you have like a stunt double for this, right? This is a production. And he said, no, that's why we hired you, because you have all this experience with animal training. And so the actor explained that he felt very nervous because he knows that Franco works in documentaries and he's pretty much a one-take kind of guy and go. So he felt really nervous about that. It's kind of a funny story, especially the sequence with the polar bear.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he was saying that polar bear was all tranked up. They had shot him with several tranquilizers before the scene where he talks to the polar bear. And the bear actually reaches up and almost Well, he actually does make contact and hits the guy in the back of the head. And he was like, "Oh, if that polar bear was actually alert, he could have decapitated me with one blow because the polar bear is that strong." And
Mhm.
he claims that the director, Franco Pespetti, was actually laughing about it, going like, "Gosh, do you know how much press, free publicity we'd get if my lead actor were actually decapitated while making this movie?" Yeah, a little freaky.
I'll give that guy some credit though. Every scene that he walked up to a dangerous animal, he did play it off like he was totally cool.
He did. That guy was an idiot, man.
Yeah,
I'll be in the circus, sure. I'll be in your movie.
the
But
finer parts of 70s cinema. You'll be fine. Just go in.
yeah, you made it though. That's good.
Yeah.
Also, we should mention that the actress, who's a bit of a scream queen, Lorraine Dalal was her name, and literally the last 4 movies listed on her IMDb are really intense Italian horror projects. He worked with Ruggero Deodato, of course, the acclaimed filmmaker who did Cannibal Holocaust. She worked on his home invasion movie, House at the Edge of the Park, after which she went on to star in Umberto Lenzi's Cannibal Ferox, also known as Make Them Die Slowly. And then she starred in Bruno Mattei's Violence in a Woman's Prison, only then to star in Franco Pespetti's Wild Beast. And after that, she stopped. Which I don't blame her, because those are some of the most intense filmmakers that you could work with.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it was like filming in the jungles for Cannibal Ferox?
Right.
That and
from House at the Edge of the Park to the jungles, and then to prison, and then to Animal Attack. Maybe.
A short but well-versed career, I suppose.
Right.
It's pretty intense. Now, I actually didn't like her that much in The Wild Beasts. She was just her character was so uptight. I mean, if that's the way it was written and she played it that well, kudos. But I didn't really care for that character that much.
Yeah, same with her in Cannibal Ferox too. She's just she's so sad. She's just such a victim in Cannibal Ferox. But what do you want? She's always like stuck in this box, crying the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. They killed her just to shut her up. So, well, should we get into some of the animal stuff?
Sure, let's go ahead and get into some of the spoiler territory here.
All right. Let's start with the elephants. That was a pretty intense scene. The elephants bust through the stone wall. It's a big stone wall. I'm assuming that's the zoo's stone wall, right?
I don't. It looked kind of like, was it styrofoam? I think it was a fake wall that they bust through.
Do you really? I didn't pay attention that much.
Yeah.
I just know they crashed through that, and what was there, like 4 of them? Just went on this destructive rampage.
Yeah, I think there were like 3 hero elephants, and I know in reality those elephants did get loose during that sequence. So they just started shooting and grabbing as many shots as they could, and the director even claims that one stepped on his foot, and if it wasn't for him being in a little flower patch out there, you know how they have these,
right?
And his foot sunk in the dirt, but for a moment there, he really thought his foot was going to get flattened.
Good Lord, that would have busted. I don't think that would have been repairable.
No, I don't think so either.
No, they would have cut that foot off.
The elephant steps on that girl's head. It's actually a pretty good scene.
You know, the quality of the gore effects were really good. I'll give them that. The couple that get eaten by the rats,
right? That
was painful to watch. They did a good job on it.
And that's a weird sequence too, because there's not a lot of practical effects in the movie. There's not too much gore really, and then it's usually sold just because you can tell that these are real animals and people screaming. But then all of a sudden in that rat sequence, they go into close-ups and they are using a prosthetic head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's surprising that the shot goes there and it's such a close-up and seeing all that blood.
Yeah, but it definitely added to the scene. But what was more terrifying with the rat scene is just the sheer number of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were hundreds of them. How do you wrangle hundreds of rats?
Right. So they actually had animal trainers or people that were in charge of the animals there. And mostly from what they were saying is just like 3 guys with tranquilizer guns pretty much were there. But for the rats, they can't shoot them with tranquilizer guns. So they actually put the director in charge of them. And the director claimed that he was given 400 rats, but then the actor said he was given 1,000 rats. So I don't know who's right or wrong, but there's obviously a big difference in numbers there. But the majority
I'm thinking it had to be 1,000.
Yeah, the majority of the rats were white rats, though, and they were used to being around people. They were like house rats, so they actually had to paint them black.
There's the job you don't want to have.
Yeah, and then
painting rats black.
Set fire to them.
Well, I was going to bring that up. This is where the animal cruelty comes in. I mean, there's other animal cruelty, but it's animal against animal type cruelty. This one, there is no mistaking. There's no excuse the production can give that would make me believe that those were fake rats. They took a flamethrower, and lit this bunch of rats on fire.
They did. And
they were scattering. I'm surprised they didn't start like a dozen different fires just with them trying to put themselves out. Yes. So that was scary.
Yeah, that was a real intense sequence. And then also they threw a live cat in there to have all
that poor cat.
A shot of all these rats running over it. I don't know what happened to that cat, but the cat looked terrified.
I tell you what, if that cat lived, it was literally the only cat on the planet that was afraid of mice from that moment on.
Right?
Can you imagine? Oh, rats don't bother me, but if 50 of them were crawling all over me, I'd be shitting myself. That's not something I would want to experience.
Yeah. And then we also have we have the polar bear, the cheetah, the tiger. Oh, the tiger got loose in that subway sequence. That's pretty funny. So they were only allowed to shoot for like 3 hours from, I think, 2 to 5 a.m. in the subway. And this is in Rome. And then that tiger actually got loose and started to roam around Rome. Started to get on top of the subway. And I guess it was a real pain in the ass to get it down from there because it was all near all the wiring and everything like that. So people were late to work that day. And it made the headlines too. Subway shut down due to tiger loose.
I have a feeling the director loved that.
Yeah, I think so. But
publicity.
Movie. They just mentioned that there was a tiger loose in the subway. People thought it was a prank or something.
I found the scene with the was it wolves? I think it was the wolves. Remember they attacked one of the pigs.
Right.
Was that the wolves or the hyenas?
I think it's a hyena.
The hyenas. Either way, it took a big bite into the pig's ear and started tugging. That was hard to see. I'm not one of the. I mean, I don't like or condone animal cruelty, but I mean, this is different than what that director did with Africa. I don't know why I want to just call it Africa Blood and Guts. I think that's a different one. Basically that movie is nothing but you're taking pictures of nature out in nature and animals are killing animals. That's what they do. But it almost feels like, he was willing to do these things just because that's what he's used to doing. In this particular setting, that I found that hard to watch because that pig was squealing. It was not happy.
Right. And on the bonus features on the Blu-ray release, that lead actor keeps saying no animals were harmed in this movie. And he says, although I feel really bad when I see the rat sequence. And then he said, well, how I say they weren't harmed when that hyena is biting on the pig's ear. Right when Franco says cut, there's guys in there separating the animals. It's like, oh, well, the harm's already been done. You can see it.
It's done. Film. You just didn't let it kill the pig is all.
Right. And then same with, I forget what kind of animals attacking the cow. But they were saying, even in that sequence, once we said cut, we separated the animals. We didn't let that animal kill the cow. It's called, yeah, but you let it maim them.
See, this is where I guess you have to be in their culture.
Uh-huh.
It's a different culture. You don't start damning the Italians because, they live differently than we do. Right. But, I'm sure their view is a little different. And it's the 70s. Everything was different in the 70s. So for me, it was hard to watch. Because, it's not a pleasant thing to listen to another animal scream while it's getting eaten.
Right. I'm going to kind of change it a little bit. I want to say like one of the most enjoyable aspects of this movie is that it has this clunky dubbing and this like weird soundtrack. So intercuts from this like overacting and bad dubbing about, hey, what are we gonna do? There's a cheetah in here, kind of stuff, and it sounds unreal with the dubbing. And then it cuts to this real animal action and violence, so it ends up for me being a real good time. You know,
it's okay. It is a good time.
Yeah.
That's why I got 3.5 stars.
And that's why, like, these sequences that we are talking about, it sounds so horrendous, but they're really quick and they're real brief. And then it gets into cornball territory. And you know that this is from the directors of Mondo Canny and Africa Blood and Guts. So you kind of give them a little leeway.
You got to give them some leeway.
Those movies are even more disgusting than this fictional film.
Yes.
What happens in Africa Blood and Guts, because it's all real and they're cutting at animals. So you would almost, not to defend them, but see why this kind of filmmaker would justify this. And even kind of write it in the script. We'll have some animals attack each other here.
Right. Filler. It's filler. Yeah. The movie does have some fun moments, though. I'm going to bring up the cheetah convertible chase.
Right.
You know, the animals are out. The elephants broke down the wall. All the animals are running amok in the city. And our lead characters are trying to, you know, capture them. Mm-hmm. And our main lead, there's a girl in a convertible racing down the streets in an uncontrolled drive because there's a freaking cheetah running her down, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, she's in traffic. Cheetahs can run what, 65 miles an hour or 30. I mean, they're fast. So unless you're going down a highway, you're not really going to outrun it in a car. And she's in a convertible, you know, right. So our main character and the cop are racing through the city, and they see this convertible go flying by and a cheetah.
Right.
And the cop is being a cop. He's all like, oh, she's driving out of control. And then our hero is all like, well, she is being chased by a cheetah.
Yeah.
When I say it, it's not as funny, but when you see it, you're all like, fuck. That's
what he says. She's not out of her mind. She's being chased by a cheetah. And it sounds like that, like really dubbed and fake.
Yeah. It's got its charms. This movie does.
It does. It's a fun time. Pick up a beer and watch it. It's a good time movie.
I think so.
Oh, another thing that's really weird that I wanted to mention was when asked what inspired this movie and why he wanted to make it, you know, obviously he kind of mentioned about his documentary experiences and that he felt that nature was being raped by man and this would be its revenge. That he wanted to make a comment on the pollution problem, and that he was inspired by the Salem witch trials, which I was like, what do you mean by that? I don't see any connection.
I don't see any type of connection.
He was saying that in Salem, what really happened was that everybody ate corn that was infected with some kind of fungus, and he even named the fungus. And he said that this fungus causes delirium and causes people to go mad, and that these men ended up believing that their wives that were feeding them the corn were evil and that they were witches and began to kill them. Which is a story I've never heard of, certainly not in the Salem TV show. I mean, and if this were true, I think it would make a great show. And it would certainly make
it would definitely make a good show. I've never heard that either. And the first hole in that theory that I can find is the women are eating the same fucking corn the guys are.
Right.
So they should be suffering from the same type of dementia.
This is so long ago that the men are really the patriarchy, you know, and they're really higher up. So if everyone's going insane, they can just start pointing fingers.
Yeah.
Probably acting weird too.
Between the time the film was made or even written and modern day, you know, there's been so much more history that was learned about that time. Yeah. You know, so I'm sure in the 70s, everybody's like, well, shit, that sounds about right. But it just doesn't translate over anymore. It's a good theory. It would make another good movie. Corn fungus.
Corny movie.
I'm going to use that next time I'm in court. I'm suffering from corn fungus, Your Honor.
I'll find the real name of that fungus for you.
Yeah. I like to be able to spew that out.
Let's see. What else did I want to mention? So I do have the physical media copy right here. This was released from Severin. And one of the bonus features is you get a tour of the director's house on there. Let me see. I know you're not going to be able to read that, but you get a tour of his house, and it's freaking wild. I mean, at first, he's got a dog, and you see a lot of furs and tusks around, kind of stuff you might imagine that this kind of person would have. But then he starts to walk around, and he takes you to his wall of voodoo, right? And he's got like this statue, this wooden statue of a dick with its balls out like this. And there's probably like 25 nails hammered in the balls. And he's just like, oh, this was a voodoo thing, obviously against man. Here's another voodoo thing. This is a voodoo against birth. And it's this horrific doll. It's all spread apart with this baby coming out. And he's like, this is used to deflower the virgins in Africa. And it's just this piece of stick with like this little head on it. And you're just like, you keep that stuff on your wall in the hall and walk by it?
Why does he call it a voodoo wall? That sounds like a sex crimes wall.
Yeah, it really looks like it. I mean, it changes the whole atmosphere of his place, in my opinion. It's like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah, he doesn't have stories about the zebra pelt that's hanging on the wall. He wants to tell you about the dick and balls with nails in it.
Yeah, pretty creepy stuff.
Fucking Italians.
But it is a good Blu-ray. I do recommend, well, I mean, if you're a fan of this kind of stuff, I do recommend picking it up.
I'm a fan of animal attack movies. I find them, if they're done well, they're terrifying because the animals are real. If you meet them in the wild, you could get eaten or maimed.
That's correct.
That's correct.
You better be careful.
Where's my ding button? Ding, ding.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for another show. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, man. I would say watch Wild Beast.
All right.
It's a good time. All right. I guess until the next time, Kevin and I will sign out. We'll see you in a week with another movie to watch.